Keeping that Yacht Rock vibe going for you. The JMV sucks, but this Yacht Rock review concert doesn't. December the 1st, Old National Center. That was the announcement earlier today. We'll give away tickets until the show, I'm sure. And, again, we'll give you the information on how you can get involved with it, get that pre-sale code going for you. What am I talking about? Yeah, doing that right now. And Wednesday is when you can get involved in that and save big money. $15 a ticket beginning on Wednesday. I'll explain how coming up in just a bit. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Rick Venturi. It is the hour you absolutely have to hear each and every week right here. You'll be officially updated on what is going on through 2 weeks of the NFL season regarding your Colts, and Rick joins us now. I don't know if you did any research on this. I know you researched everything else, but I could not recollect a time or the last time it felt so good to watch the Colts play. You know, regardless of how the third quarter went, that was a feel-good performance all the way around for the first time in a while.
Text you yesterday. When was the last time that we, the Colts, out everything the other team? I mean, there wasn't anything that we didn't dominate. I spoke to the Colts luncheon today, the corporate sponsors, and I said, you guys got to know me. You listen to me with JMV. You know that it's candid, it's unfiltered. The last thing I am is a cheerleader. I said, but I'll be honest with you, as a coach, as I look at it, I haven't been as happy watching the tape, really since I've been back. Because, I think this particular one, and hopefully it really excite the fan base for several reasons. Starting at the top, I mean, it's an organizational win. I mean, looks like they have people in place. It was Ballard's vision out there. He's made moves. He's totally turned over the roster. But what you are seeing is you're seeing a type of football team. You're seeing a team that you can identify with. You may not agree with everything, but you can see certain elements that are coming to pass that they've talked about. I think the coaching, like I said, and I'm tough there. If it's not good, I used to tell the last regime when they'd get angry at me, all you got to do is put a good performance and I'll talk about it, But, I think Frank has brought stability, presence, just what we thought, accountability. But they did a masterful job on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, and we can get into the specifics because there are many. But that was a well-coached game. They got the advantage. They took the advantage on both sides of the ball. They took away what they had to take away on defense. They added nuance to it. They really played with much more discipline. They've been playing really hard. That's never been an issue. But they played with great discipline yesterday, and that mattered. And then Frank was masterful on a couple of those drives, particularly the first one that was just, if you watch it from my standpoint, technically, it was a masterpiece, really. He had him off balance totally right down to score. So I think that part of it's just, terrific. The effort and execution of the players is getting better and better. And I think, when you watch a team, like I watched the Rays in baseball back in Tampa, and they're like 16 games over 500, but they don't have any stars. It's hard to relate to them day in and day out. You give them credit as an organization. Well, I think from our standpoint, we have our stars back. I mean, Andrew is back. Andrew's back. Hilton is back. There's a cast of guys with them. Everybody needs to DVR these games now, even if they go, because you really want to watch Nelson. Nelson really looked good this week. His first week was okay, but he really looked good this week on the pulls. I thought our offensive line, I'd give him a better grade than I did in the first game by far. When you've got that going, and then I like the way somebody put it here locally today, and a star has been born on defense. I mean, you can't hide that ability. I mean, Darius Leonard, who I knew was going to be good at some point and that would have clearly a really good upside with his skill set, but I never dreamed that he would be as impactful as he is 2 weeks into the season. I mean, that was a tremendous performance, and Ballard knew when he picked him. He wasn't worried about what other people thought of him, and that I will give Chris credit on that. Is he got a guy that he knew would be a perfect fit at the will backer for this defense. And, to his credit and the coaching staff and the linebacker guys, his development has been accelerated. And I will say this, and this was a selling point, and I've got to credit them with it. With a more simple defense, you are able to integrate young and new. I mean, you get a guy, in the past when they made like a transaction on Monday, I never paid any attention to it. Now you have to pay attention to it because like that Ward kid came right off that practice squad and got a sack. I mean, they get those guys in there quick, and I think that's pretty good because, a lot of times what happens in the NFL is coaches get in comfort zones and they don't want to put those young guys in because they don't know it. So, obviously, that stuff is all good, but Leonard is a star. I mean, we're not, this is a guy, and he's going to play a position where he's going to be around every single play. So, I mean, I think those things really pick you up. A lot of guys played well, and I can get into those specifics, John, as we go on. But you are exactly right. Your initial premise was this was a very, very fun one for us to watch. It wasn't one that we hung on. We had our flat spots. It's imperfect. You're never going to play perfect. But defensively, when you keep somebody off the board, when they don't get a touchdown, that is a tremendous accomplishment.
Rick Venturi's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm going to get to Darius Leonard in just a second, but I want to talk about what the coaching staff did because they were going down the path of the third quarter of what has been the recent history in the second half and looked as if they were melting down. And even Frank Reich mentioned after the game, hey, I know people probably thought that, oh, here we go again. I actually texted you and I said it looked like they were going back to the basics or going back to how they started the game as far as scheme and being technical offensively was being concerned. What did they do to get back and then pull off that 6.5 or so minute drive that got T.Y. Hilton into the end zone at the end of it? No,
I think that's exactly what they did. They went back to the basics. And here are their basics, and they're tremendous. I was impressed in the first game. What they're doing a great job of, and the fact that they scratched over 100 yards this week. They got into that 104, so that's up from about 68 to 104. It's a three-tiered play. With the three young kids, all three third day draft picks. But all three of them bring something to the table, and we've been high on them all. But I've loved Wilkins from the beginning because I think he gets it north and south. But to make a long story short, they got back into their power trap game. An unsung hero in this game that you won't hear a thing about because he has no numbers was Jack Doyle. Jack, who obviously struggled in that last one, he did such a good job. Frank is running a very creative running game. It's not just line up and go zone football and try to knock everybody out. They're running a lot of traps. They're running power pulls with the guards. They're running the old counter tray back to the weak side. They're running a lot of whams where Jack comes back in and cracks down on the tackle or the nose tackle. And, they're inching out yards, and they're trying to design plays for each different back. And, so I think he's doing that. But the big thing he's doing, and I semi-predicted this when when we got ready for that first game, I said, this receiver core, with the exception of Hilton, is getting no separation. But I said this is where coaching will matter because there's ways to create separation. And remember, I said that. I said coaching will matter here, and I feel like we're going to be better than we looked in the summer, which has come to fruition. And when you look at it, first of all, the first thing he's doing with Hilton is you can never find him. Hilton is no longer just lining up at Z. He's at Z. He's in the slot. He's on the weak side. Sometimes he's in the slot over there. Sometimes he's in a bunch, like when he caught the touchdown pass. That was magic. It was a bunch, drag across. He lost him in the bunch, and if he didn't, Ebron was coming across to pick for him. So, I mean, they're creating offense. They're getting it out quick. They know that they could struggle if they have to hold the ball a long time. They're making their offensive line look pretty good. I mean, you know, with one exception off that one edge, you know, it was pretty good protection. But again, they are being protected by a scheme that's very, very smart. A couple times they moved Andrew. They moved him down on that critical pass, that 3rd and 1 to Doyle. And a lot of it is this rubbing and stacks and bunches and movement and various formation groupings. I mean, he is doing the whole ball of wax. And you're not going to have, when you're throwing a lot of quick rhythm, you're not going to have those 300, 400-yard days. In some ways, you don't want them because that means you're behind. You know, if you're ahead of the count, would they have, John, 31 passes and 24 runs or something? In that kind of game. I mean, so, you know, if you're doing that, but what you do is you essentially you stay out of bad 3rd downs, which kill you in this league. I don't know if you realize it, but today, now it's only a 2-week performance, but it is 2 weeks. The Colts are number 1 in 3rd down with a 60% completion.
You know
average.
what, hey Rick, and that also takes in consideration they were miserable at it in the 3rd quarter yesterday.
Oh no, exactly. Yeah. But what they're doing a really good job of, and it's going to be so important at Philadelphia because Philadelphia defense reminds me a lot of Cincinnati, except I think they're more vulnerable because I don't think they're as sophisticated as Cincinnati, but they have potentially a great rush front. They can put 4 or 5 guys in there that are terrific, and you know, like Cincinnati, you want to keep them off balance, keep them in 3rd and 3, because your chances of converting on 3rd and 3 to 4 are 75% higher on offense than they are 3rd and 8 plus. So, I mean, it just goes without saying that's important. But Frank is doing it. He's not just talking about it. They're doing it by design. They're not just saying, well, we're hoping to get 4 yards on 1st down. They're creating ways to do it. Creative running game, creative passing game, not necessarily to get big plays, although we talked Sunday morning with you and Joe, and you asked me red zone, and I said, you got to use what's his name as the bank board guy, Ebron, and we got another one in there. We got another bank board to him on that 50-50 ball up there on the back fade. So he's pulling all the right moves, and we did get back to that on that last drive. We really got it back into basic football. And that is our basic football. Our basic football isn't like somebody else. It's really, but I take my hat off because those are things that have irritated me over the years. The simple zone running game and nothing else, and then you go a lot of 7-step drops or deep play actions. Now, when we deep play action, it's a minority of the offense. And what happens is we normally max protect it. We help both tackles. We'll come in and play fake. We'll chip one side. We'll nudge the other. And that's smart football. If you're going to throw deep, you don't need a bunch of deep. You don't need a bunch of receivers short. You need a guys blocking so that those guys can develop. So yeah, I think you're exactly right. Your observation was right. We floundered around in the 3rd quarter, and you're going to get stopped some. I mean that happens. Since Washington came out ready to go, they came up fired out. But again, I think the 2 areas, if you go big picture. And I would like to talk a lot about the defense, but if you go big picture, there's 2 things that you have to do, and I say this all the time. The 2 most important things in National Football League is how you play in that red area, and I count the red area to the 30, and how you play in the 4th quarter. And, this time, as opposed to last week, we go 3 for 3 in the red zone. So we convert, we get 21 points, we finish the drives in the red zone, and then we stop them twice. Now, we've been good even in the summertime, even when our defense kind of got that bend but don't break reputation. They still were pretty damn good in the summertime, and they're 13th after 2 weeks in terms of red zone ball. So they tightened up pretty good in the red zone, although they were pretty good all over in this one. But you have to be good there, and then you have to win the 4th quarter. John, if there's one stat I've given to you over the last 2 years, it's just how pitiful this team has been, not only in the second half, but primarily in the 4th quarter. And it's like, basketball fans here watching the NBA. It comes down that the games are going to be tight. Most NFL games are 7 points or less, and it's going to be who win the 4th quarter. So that was To me, the red zone and the signature fourth quarter is, if you say it's a new era, I'll buy it, because that is the part of it that's the new era.
It's Rick Venturi. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, the segment you have to hear each and every week in the 5 o'clock hour here on a Monday. The thing that stuck out to me regarding Darius Leonard, and this is something else I told you too, is I thought beyond the number of tackles, the quantity, both singular and comboed, but it was the situations in which he made these plays. I mean, and I want to know a couple of things. It appears to me like he's just built like that. He's that type of player. Are they putting him in situations to where he is always around the football, or is that just Darius Leonard, even as a rookie, being Darius Leonard?
Well, it's a combination of both things. First of all, he's very, very special. He's very, very special. I always thought when he was a Morse Reservoir All-Star. I didn't think he'd go in the second round because I thought he was a little raw. But there was no question in my mind about his ceiling and his upside ability. Now, the difference where I was a little bit off is I never saw that he would be this good this fast. I mean, this kid has really smart football. He's a smart football kid. He has tremendous range. I think he's a guy. He may time 4.65. But that kid's running a 4.5 on the field. That guy is a blur on the field. And I think Toure will be before it's all over, too. But this kid is a blur. He has those long arms. When we say a guy is long, he can engulf you and he can reach for a pass. I mean, he looks like an octopus going 100 miles an hour. I mean, he claws the ball. And you're exactly right. He has the huge sack, which takes them out of red zone. That was huge. That big sack that he has, and then he knocks the ball out when we're coming back, and those are two great plays. The sack was really a good call. They missed him, but it doesn't matter. You got to get the guy. You got to get the guy down, and the knockout was great. And I thought he had the knockout before that on the receiver on Crowder that they said the leg was down. I guess technically it was, but that was a knockout too. I mean, he just has the ability. Now, let's get one thing straight. In this defense, in this form of 4-3 that they play, the will backer, which he is covered by the 3 technique, okay? This is where Derek Brooks played. This is where Briggs played in Chicago. These are run-and-hit players. These are guys that you count on to make a ton of tackles and to make the stretch in the zone. So, it's like what you in the old days. It was your middle linebacker in the 4-3 that made all the plays. This is a 4-3, but it's a unique 4-3. It's an overshifted 4-3, and the linebackers go to the bubble or to the 3. He always goes to the 3. So he is that guy. He has to be our money guy. But, whether you have to be or not, he's bringing great ability and maturity. I mean, he's got the helmet cam. I mean, that's amazing. That means he's calling the defense and directing traffic. And I think they're doing that, obviously because he can do it. But also they haven't settled totally on the middle linebacker. They never take him out, which is smart. But they're playing Walker and a little bit of Moore. They're rolling that one a little bit. So you gotta put the helmet cam in the guy that's there all the time. So he's got the helmet cam. That's a credit to him, his maturity, humility, and just flat ability. I mean, at this moment in time, that's the steal in the draft. There's no question about it because he's playing every bit as good as those top lottery picks. I mean, and we got 2 guys playing that good because Nelson's playing that good. You just don't notice him because he's a guard. No, this kid is terrific, but you asked a good question. He is the money man. He's like the old in this defense. He is expected to make the plays like the old middle linebacker used to. And incidentally,
you bring up Lance Briggs, and you bring up Lance Briggs comparison, and that makes sense.
If you look at those, the 2 defenses that have been pretty good over the years in this system, that have been more state of the art, is obviously the 2000 defense in Tampa, which was the origin, and that was Derek Brooks, who's got a yellow jacket, and Lance Briggs was outstanding, and he did it at Chicago for Lovie Smith, who really came from Tampa. So that was the first derivative. That's where Ballard got into it through Lovie at Chicago. So, those are two guys, pretty doggone good country football players. I will say this too, and I really liked him when they got him a year ago at late round, and he's been banged up. But I thought Walker played pretty good too.
He did.
Obviously, when the other kid had 18 tackles, sacks, knockouts, he's had interceptions in practice. I mean, that it's just pretty special right now, honestly. It really is. But there's a lot of guys that played good on defense. And if you remember what I said last week, and I was, a couple guys said, you're going out on a limb a little bit. I was actually encouraged by that first game on defense. I thought that that defensive personnel was looking a little bit better in this scheme than maybe we thought. And I think the biggest surprise, with maybe just the exception of the obvious one, Leonard, and I've been a little higher on our corners than other people, and thank God Desir got back in there. Where was he in that opener? Desir played great. Desir made one of the plays of the game in that red zone, Coach. That game.
And I think about this too. The biggest difference to me defensively was with Mixon, Cincinnati ran the football. With Dalton and Green, they could get it down the field. Alex Smith had no running game, and I mean it was a struggle for him getting that bad boy down the field too.
Let me expound on that a little bit though. Because this is where I do want to really commend the coaching staff. Because I'm a game plan guy. I don't think you just go out and play defenses and hope that you execute. I think that you have to have some nuance, and this is the first time that they really showed me some nuance. And to go back to my surprises, I think they've gotten good football out of Desir. They had really good football Sunday. They got good football out of Hairston and good. But Kenny got beat the one time on the fade, and the biggest problem there is they showed the coverage. They've got to conceal that and not show it so fast. But where they're better, where they are playing better 2 weeks in a row than I think we all expected, is they are disruptive up front. I mean, this was a team that looked like they couldn't touch it in training camp, couldn't get close. Sheared, and this was a week they did several things. They did a lot of line stunning this week, which teams have heard us with over the years. Tackle go out and come underneath, tackle come around, and Sheared was a beast. When you look at the tape, Sheared was disruptive on that left side. He's kind of what we hoped we had. Very disruptive on the running game, up in the backfield all day. A lot of pressure, knocked down on a pass, quarterback hits. And Marcus Hunt, I don't know what he's done, and I think it's just the scheme. I think they're doing a great job with those guys.
You don't think he's becoming the Reggie White of Estonia?
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm telling you what.
Yeah.
For a guy who was a journeyman, 2 career sacks, Cincinnati essentially just let him go. This combination, and I'll tell you where he played good Sunday, was he had to go in there and play for Autry at the 3 technique, and he was disruptive. That left side. And I think here's what I think the Colts did a really good job, and I said this all week, said it on my show, that you needed to have 2 plans for, one for when Peterson was in and one for Thompson, because the game changed, and it really came down to stopping those 2 guys because they had 294 yards in that opener, and when you look at everybody else, Alex just won't put it downfield. I'm telling you, after watching this one, I'm never going to look at another stat on him again because he is checked down Charlie. Well, I tell you, no matter what, even Archuleta said in the middle of the game, eventually you got to throw it downfield. But here's what they did. They played real heavy. They played the 8-man front when Peterson was in there. They really attacked the line of scrimmage, and the linebackers did exactly like I had hoped, and I said on my show, run them through. Go get them. He is really he's not going to turn the corner. He's going to cut back. He cut back one time and got by with it. But other than that, our linebackers were firing. I mean, they were firing up in there when he was in the game. Now, when 25 came in the game, we went back to a lot of cover two and almost played him as a receiver first, which I would have too. I thought that was smart. And basically, so what they did is they attacked Peterson, and they kind of built what I call a picket fence when Thompson was in the game. So he was going to catch some balls, but he wouldn't go anywhere. They got almost 0 yardage after the catch, and that's where they killed Arizona, who is confirmed really bad team.
Yeah.
We know that now. But in the long run, I think that's the kind of nuance that I'm looking for. It's not necessarily 1,000 defenses. It's playing guys, for what they do, and they mix those coverages a little bit. Alex would not, he tried to push it downfield, and they played that soft too, and he just, he kept checking it down, and would they get 6 yards a pass? I mean, you can have 1,000 completions, but you're not going anywhere. That's kind of the Sam Bradford method of quarterback play.
Yeah, it was rough. It was no doubt about that.
And they take a beating because, once we stayed patient and stayed in those zones, and we had vision on him, and he checked it down all day, then it was like a pursuit drill. We saw, the one thing they can do is run pursuit drills. So when they're throwing that ball in front of them, I mean, it played right into our hands. It really did. And then I thought, Matt, he mixed. He didn't blitz a lot, but sometimes when you save it for key situations, and you don't show it by alignment, it's effective. Like we had pressure, and then we got the critical sack of the game. Because now, if you're blitzing every down like that, then they're probably in the rhythm. They're probably going to pick that up and at least get the ball off. I mean, we got a free sack because we sprinkled it. We sprinkled it at the right time. So again, a really good show. And and at least you come out of there with a win. And I don't know if you realize this or not, John, but do you realize that the next 6 opponents we have all lost yesterday?
They did. Yep.
All 6 of them lost. So
well, I want to get to that. I tell you, I want to put you on hold, and I want you to think about this. Featuring Darius Leonard, because of the games he's had so far defensively, I want you to think about exactly how you believe Philly will attack that offensively coming up this Sunday. That's on the other side. Rick Venturi must listen. We'll put him on hold and come back with Rick. Other side next.
It's all things Colts with former coach Rick Venturi. The Ride with JMV on FM 107.5 and 1070 The Fan.
Yacht Rock Show featuring me and Yacht Rock Review December 1st, Old National Center, Egyptian Room. Pre-sale tickets coming at you on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. The JMV Sucks. That is the code you need for the $15 tickets. JMV Sucks. Back to the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline and Rick Venturi. So, 2 things here. This was asked of me to ask you, is Darius Leonard now an ambien player officially in your opinion? And so if you're the Eagles offensively and Doug Peterson, how would you attack the rookie if you feel so designed coming up on Sunday? What do you think?
I can't believe that I can say a rookie 2-game players is, but in my eyes, if I was getting ready for him, he would keep me up nights, and I would have to have a plan. So I'm giving him that ambien rating, okay? All right. Now, here's what the thing that I want to do with him. I want to, if I'm playing against him, okay, I want to cut down his ability to run. This kid is a run and hit guy. I mean, he's a deep pass defender. So basically what you want to do is really run right at him. Sometimes the great players, you want to run right at them and actually cut down their ability to run. I would probably, because he's going to end up, I would probably shift around a lot, see if I can move him a little bit, but try to get the tight end over there, try to get a load at him and run right at him. Now you got to negotiate those guys up front who are playing pretty good, so it's got to be some power football on that 3. The second thing I would do is I think you have to freeze him on the pass. In other words, if you're just going to drop back and try to throw on that weak side, I mean, he's going to be around it. So what you have to do to me, and this is where if you have a running game, it really helps you. That's why it helps us to have a running game, even if the numbers aren't great, because the linebackers have to respect it. So you want to put him in conflict. So you want to run a lot of weak side play action where he is frozen and voids that curl back in there, or you get him to run and you run the bootleg back across. So in other words, you try to take you try to do it with everybody, but with a young kid who's really reactionary, you want to freeze him. You want to get him moving one way and then hit against the grain or in behind him. And then when you do have to throw it, you want to throw what I call vertical floods. You want to sit a guy at 5 and a guy at 16, so he has to make a choice. You know what I'm saying? Like what we would say is dig, check down. If you try to throw horizontal floods, he'll be all over it. So, there's ways to attack him, but that's, where the rest of the ball club comes in and has to really play. But that's how you try to minimize a young kid that's that talented.
It's Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So what do you expect to see from Carson Wentz in his first start since last December and that injury?
Yeah, well, if Carson Wentz was 12 months out, a year and a half out, then there would be a lot of pressure put on your defense, because he is, when he was healthy, I mean, he was very much like Andrew Luck. I mean, I used to say Andrew Luck from Mayberry, simply because he was from North Dakota State, but his numbers, his metrics, the look is almost the same. Big physical guy that looks like a tight end, and he could really run it. And they did a really good job of not only running RPOs with him, but running, zone reads, and then he has the option to throw or run off of it. But I don't think we'll see a lot of that. I don't think at 9 months that you're going to do that. I think that his advantage to that team, which is struggling, I mean, they have not played good. I studied every summer game. They have been a little bit sloppy all summer. They got enough nicks. They really miss Alshon Jeffries. He may play this week. When Peters goes out, they're a mess at left tackle. I mean, all of a sudden they drop a lot. This one wasn't really all on Foles. I mean, they struggled in the offensive line, and that's their strength when they're all healthy, their offensive line. Their running backs are really good. I think the strength of their team is the running backs and the offensive line. He got hurt, and he went out there. He came back in and played, but he struggled. And Clement is a guy that is under the radar, that is really a good player. He's a home run hitter, number 30. If you remember, he caught the wheel. I'm going to have all this on my social media show here this week.
Is Fletcher Cox, can you make the argument that he might be the best defensive player in the NFC?
He's in that conversation. Yeah, he is. When we go to the other side, I'll flip that. But I think you basically have to stop the running game. I think the Wentz factor will be more psychological. It'll be more of a psychological lift when you listen to the Philly players talk, because they know they're struggling. I mean, they got scorched at Tampa, and they just barely got out alive on the last play of the game. Atlanta, or they're 0-2. So, they're struggling. They're in a life and death struggle. And I think the Wentz thing at this point, I think if they would be 2-0 and they'd have won Sunday, they may have still held back a little bit. I think he needs to inject him in there. But he doesn't scare me in terms of being the MVP. I don't think Foles played that bad yesterday. Not so good in the first game, but not so much yesterday. They got a lot of other problems. They don't have. You can sit on them, though, because, Alshon, when he's there, you got to be able to compete on the 50-50 ball with him. He's the deep threat. But other than that, they're a box team. I mean, they run it, and Aguilar is their all-purpose receiver. He's in the slot. He's their gadget guy, and that's something you got to really be alert for, because that's what they'll do to Leonard too. Is they're really a gadget team. The Philly specials and all that crap that you see. Aguilar will motion and run a sweep. He'll run a speed. He's kind of their gadget guy, their go-to receiver. But he's really a slot, John. He's not a vertical player. He's a numbers-to-numbers guy, really. And so, to me, it's a lot like. You got to stop that. We're a lot like Cincinnati. Stop that. You have a little bit of packet in there for Aguilar, but he's not like an AJ. They don't have like an AJ Green. You just can't let him get running, to be honest with you. You just cannot let that happen. And just remember, the best players they have, and Sproles didn't play last week either with the hamstring. So, I mean, when they're healthy, they've got Ajayi and they've got Clement and they've got Sproles. I mean, they got three guys that can really go. So stop that, have a plan for Aguilar, and then a lot of movement on third down. I think they have been vulnerable to blitzes. I am a little bit surprised for a world champion. And movement inside. You want to get on Wisniewski and Brooks and Kelsey. If you're their tackles are really good. If Peters is there, they're really good at the tackle. But I think you can mix things up inside with your stunts. I think you can inside blitz them and get them. But that's the big thing. You gotta stop those running backs first, and then Aguilar second. On the other side of the ball, the number one thing is you got to negotiate Fletcher Cox. There's no question about him. He's as good an all-around player as there is in the league. He's a big force. Most of the time he'll be on our right guard. He does go to the nose and sometimes to the right, but he's mostly left and nose. But he is both a good run player and he can speed rush it and he can power it. So you basically, if you're going to help, you always want to help to where he is. Now, where they got scorched, here's what I think their biggest issue is, and they've got a couple. They actually have a couple good corners in Mills and Darby, but Jimmy Schwartz never. He undresses them every down. They play that single high. Sometimes it's zone, sometimes it's man. But I mean, you have to search tapes to find any kind of cover two or double roll. And what Tampa did, they came out and just scorched them. Opening play of the game, play action, freeze them. LaShawn Jackson, he comes up on Mills on the left side, post, 75-yard touchdown. I mean, they just went after him. And I think what you have to do on first down, because on first down you get a lot of zone and 8-man front, is that's where your play action, you want to take your shots and get a lot of double move because they're guessers. You want to take your shots deep. And you want to hit the area. The other area they're really vulnerable is like on bootlegs where you move Andrew, which they moved him a little bit this week, and you want to hit guys in that second level, that level between the linebackers and the safeties, because they play that three deep, that single high, and a lot of it's zone on first down. So you want to work outside on the corners on first down, and then you want to work right back in. Now, it's very much like the Cincinnati game plan. You got to move it on first and second down, and we've been doing a really good job of that. You don't want to come up third and long here because when you get third and long, they get the package in there like Cincinnati. They'll get Long on the left. They'll put Graham inside. They'll put Bennett or Cox inside, and then Barnett on the right. I mean, that is a foursome. That's even a better foursome then. And they've got 5 guys to roll for 4 spots, and they can really come after you. So you don't want to get in that third and long. If you do get in that third and long, and I thought Frank was smart a couple of times Sunday, he threw slants even though they didn't get the first down. But the idea was don't give them a big play, and maybe you catch and run and get it. And make sure that if it's third and really long, still keep your quick rhythm or screen it, or if you want to throw deep, go max protection. But don't go in between because that's where they beat Atlanta at the end of the game. They came in there, and Cox got that key sack there in the red zone. So, it's a lot like you attacked Cincinnati, although in some ways schematically it's easier because you almost always know you have some kind of 3 deep over there.
So Rick Venturi with us. Quick break. We'll come back, and I want you to think about a couple of things. Those couple of things would be Clark on the left and what you saw from Haig on the right offensively. Is that okay, Rick? Think about that. We'll come back. Final time. Must listen every Monday after 5. Rick Venturi. We'll close it out with him next.
On FM 107.5 and 1070 The Fan.
JMV sucks, but this concert doesn't, starring Yacht Rock Review. That's coming up the 1st of December, Old National Center Egyptian Room. Tickets for pre-sale go on sale Wednesday, the 19th, 10 a.m. Your passcode is JMV sucks. That's JMVSUX. JMVSUX for $15 tickets. And that gets underway Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Again, use the passcode JMVSUX, JMVSUX. Rick Venturi rejoins for the final time. How'd you think LaRaven Clark and Joe Haig played on either side of the line?
I thought they had a pretty good game, and I think what I'm noticing when you throw a lot of quick rhythms and you move Andrew a little bit on those boots, what it does is they start holding up play after play, and they start gaining confidence. I mean, the only time they really got beat on the edge, and Andrew did a pretty good job at times of stepping up inside. I think he's doing a little bit better job of stepping up in the pocket so that those guys can run guys by the pocket. I mean, the only time LaRaven got beat, I swear to God, the guy was offsides. He just got a jump on him and got around the edge. But overall, it wasn't bad. Now, don't get me wrong. You don't want to get You don't want to get in a 7-step drop with these guys and think you're going to do that 40% of the time, because they will be exposed. Now, LaRaven will have Barnett on that right side almost all the time, and he's a kid that played 96. He played so well in the playoffs. He was, I think, the 13th pick, was he, out of Tennessee. I mean, he's an effort guy, not the fastest guy in the world, but with LaRaven,
he's a great compliment to everybody else on that line. He plays off of them. Yes,
the tougher guy is Graham. Graham will start on first down on the left end, and that'll be Haig's guy. But on third down, you have Long on the left side. Now, Haig is not a bad matchup for Long. I know Long. Long is an aggressive, tough, but he's a second effort sack guy. And I think Long is not a great athlete, so I think Haig's there. Barnett will still be there. Well, we got to be careful on third down is those interior guys. All of a sudden you got Nelson, Kelly, and Slauson, but you got combinations of Cox, you got Bennett, and then what they do a great job of is Graham goes in on the right guard on third down, and that's probably the matchup they want. They want Graham in there on Slauson. So now you got to pick your poison. You got Cox on one side. So I worry more about third down, John. You can chip the outside guys. I worry more about that interior.
Well, overall, I didn't do the hardcore research about when was the last time. And honestly, Rick, this is why I put such a premium on that first game with the Bengals, is because now you can actually, you know how it feels. You see it with the confidence level of those guys. You know how it feels in that locker room by virtue of that kind of celebration afterwards with Jim in there as well. And the fan base now ecstatic and more into it than they have been in a long time. That is why even during a rebuild, there is nothing ever wrong with showing progress by winning.
Oh, you can rebuild and win. I totally believe that. I honestly do. And the thing that they've got to do now, it's one thing to go in and play really good as an underdog. What they have to do now is enjoy this and gain confidence from it, but realize there's no elevator to success. It's a stair step. It's one step, and now you go to Philadelphia. You're going to get an angry Eagle team. They're upset with getting embarrassed at Tampa. That is you got to play good early like we did in Washington. You got to go in there and take it to them. You saw Gruden's body language was shot after the first series, after the first drive for a touchdown in the first 3 and out. If you looked at Jay Gruden in the face, he was beat already. Well, you got to go in there and take that crowd out of Lincoln Financial. I mean, to say that's a hostile environment is to say that Charles Manson had an attitude problem. I mean, that is a tough place to play. You want to take them out of it. But the good news, if when they're not playing good, because I've been in Philadelphia many times, even in the old vet, if you can jump on them early, they'll turn on the Eagles in a second. So, that's what you really want to take them out of it. And I think the other thing, psychologically, we talked a lot physically, but psychologically, just think about the 2-18 Eagles. Don't worry about the 2-17 Eagles. That was back here. That's kind of the myth versus the reality. They're not playing that well right now. That's not the same team. Go in there just like you did to Washington. Take it to them. Take no prisoners. Just get after their ass from the first play on, and don't stop. I mean, right now, there's a couple great teams in the league. Right now, Jacksonville looks terrific. I mean, they made the Patriots look like bad team, and the Rams. I mean, but I mean, there's a bunch of teams. There's 28 of them that are. Just depends on how you play that Sunday.
Rick, awesome as usual. Thank you. I appreciate it, and all week long. Thank you, Rick.